Welcome to part 2 of my mixed exercise chapter 1 worked video solutions. Let's get straight into the video. We've got to factorize this. So again, what is the highest thing that both terms are divisible by? And in this case, it is x. So it's going to be x brackets 3x plus 4. Again, let's change our color. So we have 2y. This is the highest common factor across both of these two terms. So 2y times 2y makes 4y squared, and this is going to be plus 5. Again, let's change color. I'm going to run out of colors at this rate. We're going to go for, over here, I can see that x is the highest common denominator. It divides through everything. So it's going to be x plus y plus y squared. And then for part D, we're simply going to do 2. Need to change our color again. Let's go for a green. We need to do 2xy. That is the highest common factor that appears in this question. So we've got to multiply this by 4y, and we've also got to multiply by 5x to end up with what we have. Let's move on to question number 6. So for part A, here we're going to have to use some of our factorizing tricks. So what I like to do here is write out my two factors, and I know that I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to make plus 2 and add to make 3x. So it's going to be plus 2 and plus 1. Let's move on to the next part B. So here I'm just factorizing this. Remember, you can only do this trick when it's in this form, when it's in the ax squared plus bx plus c format. Otherwise, it will not work. So please be mindful of that trick. Not sure what's going on. There we go. We have everything. So for part B, let's switch the color again. So it's going to be x, and in fact, it's going to be 3x, isn't it? Because 3x divides into both the left term and the right term. So it's going to be x plus 2. Moving on to part C, we need one term. We need two numbers that multiply to make minus 35 and that add to get minus 2. So straight away, I think of 7 and 5. So if it was minus 7 and plus 5, it would end up with minus 2. Yeah, because minus 7 plus 5 is minus 2. So that would work out. For part D, we can use the same sort of trick. So I can write 2x and x, that I will get my 2x squared. Now to get my minus 3, I can think of minus 3 and 1. That would minus 3 and 1 as a factor, but luckily our 2x will help us as well. So if we can somehow get plus 1 and minus 3 here, what you can see is, even though I have minus 3x, then I have 2x plus 2x. So that would equal to my minus x. And we can actually expand this out. If it doesn't work, it's always a good idea just to expand it out so you can see if it would work. Let me write 2x minus 3 and x plus 1. Let me write out the alternative of what it could have been. It could have been plus 3 and x minus 1. And we'll expand it out. So if I expand out this, I would have got 2x squared plus 3x minus 2x minus 3. So this would have only meant that I ended up with plus x, but here we end up with minus x, and that's exactly what we're looking for over here. Okay, so hopefully you guys saw that. Otherwise, I will run through that one more time. I was looking for, if we have a look at this, I was essentially looking for two numbers that multiply to make minus 3, and I was looking for a number that the two numbers that will add to get minus x. Now, if I wasn't sure, what I ended up doing was I ended up multiplying it out fully just to double check what it was. And we figured out that from the bottom expansion, we get plus x, but from the top expansion, we got minus x. So this is our correct answer. This is not correct. Okay, let's move on to part E. I am going to change our color to a interesting blue. So we have over here, now it's getting slightly harder. We need to write 5x plus something multiplied by x. So that's the first term sorted. Now we just need to sort the last and middle term. So we need to end up with minus 6. So the factors that I can think of for minus 6 are 3 and 2. But we need to make sure somehow we get, so because we're trying to target minus 13, what I can think of is by doing 5 times 5 times minus 3 plus 2. So that way we would get minus 15 plus 2. So I'm going to write my minus 3 on this side. So I get my minus 15x, and then I would write my plus 2 here. So that way it would work. Okay. And then for part F, we need to factorize it. And for some reason, they've decided to make our lives more difficult. So what we need to do is we need to write minus x squared plus 5x minus 6. And what I've done there is I've just taken a factor of minus 1 out. Okay, so if you're not comfortable writing minus by taking it out, write it as minus 1, and you'll see why we're doing that. Just because it makes it a little bit more easier to work with. So we need two numbers here that multiply to make minus 6, but add to make plus 5. This is a very common trick type of question. A lot of students write plus 3 and plus 2, plus 3 and minus 2, or some variation of that, but that wouldn't add up to plus 5. So the answer is going to be plus 6 and minus 1, because this would multiply to make minus 6 and also adds to make plus 5. And don't worry about the negative because we've written it outside the bracket. So there's our answer there. Okay, let's move on to question number 7. In terms of factorizing this, again, what is the most common thing? It's x. So, it's going to be 2x, actually. So it's going to be x squared plus 6. What am I doing? It's going to be x squared plus 3. Let's move on to part B. Can you spot what this is? I'll give you a moment to think about it. Yes, so I'm going to take out my x squared minus 36. Yes, but we're not done that because it's the difference of squares. Remember the formula for difference of squares. It's a squared minus b squared. So we are simply going to write x plus 6 and x minus 6. Remember, this factorizes to a plus b, a minus b. This is an identity that you should be aware of. Okay, let's move on to the last question. I'm going to pull out a factor of x. So we're going to be left with 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. And again, we're going to play that same game. So here I need to factorize this. I'm going to write 2x plus, in fact, I'm not going to write the plus yet because we don't know if it's going to be a plus or negative. So the game is we need to end up with 7, and I need to multiply something by the 2. So it's going to be 2 times 5 minus 3. That would work. So I'm going to write plus 5 over here and minus 3 over here, just because I know that I would have to do 2x multiplied by plus 5. Okay, and I would end up with my answer. Hopefully that's easy for you guys to understand. Let's move on to part 8. In these questions, we have to simplify the following. Hopefully this is something that now we can fire through. Let's move on to part A. So here, what we have to do is we have 3x to the 3, and because it's divided by, it's going to be minus 3. Okay, over here it does say minus 3. So overall, my answer is going to be 3x to the power 6. For part B, what we are going to do is let's move on to part B. Just if you guys cannot see this, it does say what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the powers out. So let's write it a little bit more clearly. 1 over 3. And what we'll be left with is 4 to the power of a half, which is going to be the square root of 4. Now the square root of 4 is going to be plus minus 2. Don't forget the plus minus, and the reason why I write it like this is because minus 2 times minus 2 is 4, and plus 2 times plus 2 is also 4. So there are 2 options. So please remember to write it in this format. Okay, let's move on to part C. Here we are simply multiplying out our powers. So it's going to be 6x to the minus 2 plus minus 4. Okay, which is just going to be 6x to... Hang on, is that a minus? Apologies, I do not think that is a minus. I think that is supposed to just be a 4. The picture is not as clear. It's just a 4 over here. There's no minus. So in that case, it's just going to end up as 6x squared. For part D, we can do a similar sort of trick. So we have 3 divided by 6 is a half straight away. So I'm going to write a half, and this is going to be x. And then we just need to deal with the fraction. So it's going to be 1 over 3 minus 2 over 3, which means it's a half x to the minus a third. Now, all this means is that my answer is going to be 1 over 2 the cube root of x. And this is essentially how I can write it. Okay, this is going to be correct. And I'm just going to write this in a brackets format just to make it ultra clear that it's the cube root multiplied by the x. Perfect. Let's move on to question number 9. Evaluate the following terms. Hopefully this should be nice and straightforward. So with this, I'm going to make sure I cube root everything first. So with my 8, I'm going to raise that to the power 3, and 27, I'm going to raise that to the power 3, and then I'm going to square everything. So by doing this, I know it's absolutely huge. The cube root of 8 is 2, and the cube root of 27 is 3, and this is going to be squared. So we're just going to end up with 4 over 9 as our answer. Now let's copy this question and do something similar for part B over here. So for part B, what we have is... Oh, I've lost my screen. So we've got 225 over 289. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square root both sides. Remember, when we square root, we always get a positive and negative. So we're going to end up with the square root of... I'm essentially going to get plus minus 15 over 17. And this is going to be cubed. So 15 cubed is... I unfortunately will need my calculator for this one. So it's going to be 3,375. And 17 cubed is 4,913. Perfect. Okay. And we need to remember our plus minus. Let's just make that extra clear. So it would be plus minus 3,375 over 4,913. Perfect. That brings us to the end of this video. The next part will be in the next section. Thank you for listening.